Well, you're listening to one of the last episodes of Archaeopolitics probably ever.
Yeah, I forgot the listeners can't see me. I'm sitting here thinking like, oh my god, face.
Yes, podcasting, a highly visual medium, Helene.
Insert explanation of the face I was making here.
I would say it was like half trepidation, half acceleration with some, I don't know, like scream inserted in there. I don't know.
I think it's very much Scream inspired.
Yeah. So that's what it is. What is Archaeopolitics, you might ask, dear listeners? It is a Harry Potter reread podcast focusing on politics in the wizarding world. And I am one of your hosts, Adri, a self-titled recovering English major.
Yes, and I'm Helene, your co-host and producer. And I gotta say, if you're starting at the second to last chapter of the last book, I have some questions for you if you don't already know who we are. But welcome either way. Yes.
I'm like, thanks for listening. You're the best. But also we have other, episodes you can listen back to. Helene's tenure started around Goblet of Fire, was it?
It was like I think it was literally like around the chapter that Cedric died. Whatever chapter that is. Like the graveyard? Is it just called the graveyard?
Yeah, bringing you in with a bang of a chapter there.
Yeah, it was around there. So yeah, go check it out. As along with the rest of the podcast, because I guess I'll admit that the podcast was still fine before I started too. But it's fine, whatever.
My God, it's the ego on this one. Can't believe I'm starting yet another podcast with this one. My God.
It's just because I'm so dang awesome. How can you not?
Also, I couldn't give up these chats, these weekly chats.
Yeah. I'm so humble. It's amazing.
Of course. Very humble, giving spirit. Anyway, we're going to be talking about chapter 36 today. This is the chapter right before the 19 years later epilogue. So technically the end of the book, if you don't count an epilogue as the end, right?
Yeah, but I think there's not really a way to not count. Wow, double negatives. You have to count the epilogue in this series. It just doesn't. Yeah, so I would call it the penultimate chapter technically, but yeah, I see what you mean.
It is. Yeah, well, but it's also like a prologue and an epilogue are there for a reason to like tie up everything nicely. Da 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 da.
Yes,
but you could make an argument for, but are they necessary? Sometimes not, right? Like the end, yes. the end of this chapter is pretty much ending like the entire storyline.
Yes, the main story,
yeah,
for sure.
And the epilogue is giving the readers closure.
Yes, it's like a sneak peek into post-Voldemort life.
Correct. Anyway, this one is titled The Flaw in the Plan.
Sure is.
Please tell us what happens in this jam-packed chapter. Like a lot more happened than what I realized.
Yeah, I was like writing this chapter summary and I was like, this is going to be a whole fucking chapter in itself. This chapter summary is long because so much shit happens and it's all important. Like I can't just like skip it. So
yeah,
strap in. It's a long one, so strap in.
At least you didn't say strap on.
Right, exactly. This is the one where, after surviving Voldemort's killing curse for the second time, legend, Harry continues to pretend. Harry continues to pretend he is dead, so that the Death Eaters think that they have won and will lower their defenses. Voldemort forces Hagrid to carry Harry's body back to the castle, and once they arrive, he presents it to everyone as some sort of trophy. While Neville retrieves the Sword of Gryffindor from a flaming sorting hat and kills Nagini, outside forces start attacking the Death Eaters, and chaos ensues, allowing Harry to discreetly join the fight again under the invisibility cloak and help his friends. Finally, Harry reveals himself as alive, and he faces off with Voldemort, explaining to him why he's going to lose. They face off, and Voldemort dies, killed by his own rebounded curse. Everyone rejoices and thanks Harry profusely, but he just wants to be alone. Mood. But first, he grabs Ron and Hermione to tell them everything they had missed and takes them to Dumbledore's office where he speaks with the former headmaster's portrait. He uses the Elder Wand to repair his own and decides he's had enough trouble to last a lifetime.
Well. Thank you so much for that summary.
So much happened.
Yeah, so a lot more happened than obviously was shown in the movie and whatever I've heard from this chapter. So it was kind of hard for me to pick a politic. Did you go through that as well or no?
I did because I don't know, not a specific one really didn't stand out, and I had to think about it for a while. To be honest. Yeah, it was a kind of enigma of a chapter.
It's an enigma wrapped in...
Are you getting an Amber Alert on your phone? Is that what that sound is?
I'm not getting one, but I guess Seth is getting one upstairs.
Gosh, that noise.
It's a chilling noise, especially when you have children. Anyway.
Yes.
Whew. Okay, so yeah, this was an enigma of a chapter. I kept going back and forth between like the politics of like resurrection, right? Or like kind of like thinking about like Harry coming back, as it were, resurrected, and what that kind of does for his profile and also Voldemort's like shock. And how he feels like a weight has been lifted off him, like he's like unafraid because he's faced death kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I thought about that one. But I ended up going like back to basics and going with like the politics of bravery because I'm a Gryffindor and how could I not?
I love it. I love it so much.
So, I am not going to necessarily define the politics of bravery, but I do have a quote from John F. Kennedy to read about this, okay?
Got it.
So, in whatever arena of life, one may meet the challenge of courage, whatever may be the sacrifices he faces if he follows his conscience, the loss of his friends, his fortune, his contentment, even the esteem of his fellow men. Each man must decide for himself the course he will follow. And let's, whenever he says he, it's, they and she and all that.
Yes, yeah. Very gendered language.
I mean... I hate to say the cliche. It was a different time.
Yeah.
Whatever. So in this chapter, like we see bravery in so many places and spaces. Even Narcissa's act of, figuring out how to save her son in a way is an act of bravery. Because what if she was found out?
Yeah.
The Harry's bravery, of course, in like meeting Voldemort and giving him a chance to redeem himself and repent and find remorse took bravery. Molly Weasley, MVP of bravery in this chapter. Just
Neville
Longbottom, my boy. My beautiful, beautiful boy.
Yeah. First one to really stand up to Voldemort. Like, honestly, could have been murdered right there on the spot.
Oh, yeah.
He had no idea what was going to happen.
Neville is my child.
Yeah.
Neville is everything to me.
Yeah.
And he always has been. What about you? What was your politic?
I went with the politics of confidence, which actually is pretty, like, similar to bravery. However, except for the fact that I also I'm going to touch a little bit on like overconfidence and how that ties in with like underestimating people and overestimating oneself.
You mean like Bellatrix and Voldemort?
Yeah, exactly. So, as I'm not, we're almost to the end here. I'm not gonna like change up, who I am as a basic human being. I am going to define my terms because I love to do that.
There you
So
go.
the definition of confidence is the state of feeling certain about the truth of something. Alternatively, another definition would be a feeling of self-assurance arising from one's appreciation of one's own abilities or qualities. So one definition is more about like just certainty of things, and another definition is certainty of yourself and your abilities. But both apply. So basically, like in this chapter, we see Harry has a really newfound confidence in the outcome of this entire battle. After speaking with Dumbledore in the afterlife, and being resurrected, as you so beautifully said. And so now he fully understands everything that has happened up until this moment and knows without any like semblance of a doubt that he is going to win this battle and why he is going to win this battle. And that gives him all the confidence he could ever need to do that. It's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
And this newfound confidence allows him to move forward without any fear or apprehension. So that's where the bravery comes in, like the politics of bravery. The confidence makes him brave. That gives him bravery, and makes him completely sure of every next step that he wants to take, and not questioning how he wants to handle any given situation. He's not questioning himself. He knows what he's going to do. He doesn't have to worry about it. He's like, I know my shit. Which finally, after 7 fucking books, Harry believes in himself, right? Like fucking finally.
And yet, he still uses Expelliarmus for his last.
I think there was like a very like to me when I was reading, I was like, oh, it's very obvious plot reason why she did that. But we can talk about that.
Yes, but also like, how we just joke about like this is his go-to, like this is his crutch.
I think with this specific scene, it's like J.K. Rowling did not. I don't think she, or the author, whatever, didn't want Harry to go out using an unforgivable curse. I think that like she wanted Harry to go out being like this noble person who doesn't.
Oh yeah, I know, I agree. But there are also, I'm sure, in the history of spells,
Right.
other spells that are not unforgivable.
Right. Yeah, and like the rebounded curse thing doesn't fully make sense because like Expelliarmus is just supposed to make it so that he is disarmed. It's not supposed to rebound spells back onto the original caster like that.
Correct.
There has to be an actual spell that rebounds the spell back.
Yeah,
like maybe even Protego. Like if you put the shield up, then maybe like the spell would bounce off his Protego shield. Like I don't know, but
correct.
Expelliarmus does not like it. Just makes you so you drop your wand. Like that's all. Whatever. Plot. It's fine.
It's fine. It has to be fine because the book has been published for how many years now?
Yes, and we do not have a time machine to go back and change it. So,
I mean, honestly, if we had a time machine and we could go back and change something in the author's mind, that would not be it.
No.
It would be the transphobia. Okay,
no, for sure. No, if we only had one chance, that wouldn't be it. So anyway, speaking of confidence, he's also very confident in his decisions that he discusses in the headmaster's office at the end of the chapter, involving what he's going to do with his with the remaining Hallows, which I guess when I say remaining because the stone is basically he's like this. I dropped the stone in the forest. No fucking clue where it is. I'm not going to go looking for it. We're just going to leave it. Cool, awesome, and like. The wand. I don't want it. I'm going to put it back in. I'm going to use it to fix my wand. I'm going to put it back in your tomb and we're just going to leave it. Cool. Awesome. And then, cloak. I'm going to keep that. It's mine. I like it. I don't really want to get rid of it. Cool. Awesome. Like he did, like, he just kind of like lays it out. He's like, I know what I want to do. I've made up my mind. I'm not coming to you for advice. I'm not coming to you for permission. I'm just telling you and letting you know. Common courtesy. Dumbledore, by the way, Hallows, no more. Bye. Fuck the power. I don't know. I don't want power, is what he's saying.
Fuck the patriarchy is what we say on this podcast.
Fuck the patriarchy. I was gonna say it, and then I was like, that doesn't make sense in this context. But in general, it always makes sense.
No, I'm just saying that's what he says. But what we say in this podcast is fuck the patriarchy.
Yes, exactly. 100%.
110%.
Exactly.
I have to be extra as a Gryffindor. Yes. Speaking of extra Gryffindors.
Oh wait, I have one more thing I wanted to talk about in terms of confidence.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when, like I mentioned at the beginning, like Voldemort is actually overconfident in himself all the time, but generally in this chapter as well. It's shown in this chapter in the way that he is so sure at the beginning that he had beaten Harry once and for all. He had no doubt in his mind that his killing curse had worked. Like, he put his defenses down because he was like, cool, I beat him. We won. Awesome. Overconfidence really fucked him over with that. And he cannot fathom for a millisecond that he could have been wrong or, not succeeded in what he wanted to do. Like, he's just like, I am way too fucking confident about everything that has to do with me, Voldemort. So therefore I'm the best. And it led to his downfall. His overconfidence in this chapter really plays a large factor in his downfall because it really means that he's underestimating Harry and Harry's abilities and Harry's, like, I don't know, awesomeness this chapter. And therefore he loses because he underestimated Harry.
Yeah.
So.
And you can't out extra a Gryffindor. You just can't, Voldemort. Right. I'm sorry. Because I am just jamming this transition in no matter what. Speaking of extra Gryffindors.
Oh my gosh.
This is my quote. I'm sorry, I had the perfect transition.
I'm sorry, but it wasn't done.
I don't care.
Tell me about extra Gryffindors, please.
Of course, my baby boy, is going to be my choice for the quote in this chapter because he doesn't get enough credit, I'll join you when hell freezes over, said Neville. Dumbledore's army, he shouted, and there was an answering cheer from the crowd, whom Voldemort's silencing charms seem unable to hold. Look at my baby boy, like, just instilling bravery into the crowd.
Yeah. This is
10 out of 10.
Like, this is like the Neville that little Sorcerer's Stone Neville had no idea was possible.
Who he would become. But you know who did? The Sorting Hat. The Sorting Hat fucking knew. Ah, beautiful.
And sadly, R.I.P. pour one out for the Sorting Hat in this chapter.
Yeah,
but yes.
I know, which then gets, incinerated upon his head. And then
just imagine because obviously it's not explicitly said in this chapter, but we know that like the way that he gets the sword is because the hat falls like on his head, or the sword falls in the hat on his head while the hat's on his head. Basically, the sword, like the hilt of the sword, hits him in the head. Well, I think that would have like knocked him out. Maybe it depends on the force of it.
Well, maybe it's like he can feel it, kind of balancing on his head.
It was just like adding insult to injury, right? Like this hat is on your head, it's on fire, and now you're being jammed in the head by a hilt of a sword. Have fun.
But then maybe then he feels it and like takes it off, or as he takes it off, that's when he sees the sword.
Maybe.
Like glinting.
In the movie, he like the hat was like on the ground and he saw the hilt.
Exactly. So maybe he like takes off the hat and that's where the sword like makes its appearance because he's a Gryffindor in need.
And listeners, you can't see this, but every time she's saying takes off the hat, she's like miming taking off the hat, and I just find
because podcasting is
it's just funny because
visual medium.
I have to finish my thought. It's funny because it's as if like that is 100% like the hat is on fire. He would not just be casually taking off his hat every time you're doing it. I'm like, yes, but the hat is on fire, Adria. You would not you don't want to just like casually take it off when it's.
Okay, I'm sorry, Helene. You mean to tell me that if your hat was on fire, you wouldn't try to fucking take it off?
Not casually, like, oh look, here's my hat, take it off. Like I would just be like shaking my head away, like I'd be throwing my body around. Honestly, get this fucking hat off my head.
Also, just before we move on, there's like a callback to book 1 Neville because he is immobilized in this moment.
Oh, Petrificus Totalis. Yeah, they talk about that. Yeah.
Yes. So it's like, look at book one Neville difference, like look at him go.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then he just slashes the snake. Woo, beautiful.
Yeah. He was brave as shit in this chapter. I'll tell you that. I agree.
He's
you know who else was fucking
a sex symbol for that, honestly.
Yes. You know who else was brave as shit in this chapter? Harry, in this moment that in the quote that I'm about to read for my chapter Confidence. So my quote chapter is
my quote chapter.
My chapter quote. Goodness, words. My chapter quote is: "If it is not love that will save you this time," said Voldemort, "you must believe that you have magic that I do not, or else a weapon more powerful than mine." "I believe both," said Harry, and he saw a shock flit across the snake-like face, though it was instantly dispelled. Voldemort began to laugh, and the sound was more frightening than his screams, humorless and insane. It echoed around the silent hall. "You think you know more magic than I do," he said. "Than I, Lord Voldemort, who has performed magic that Dumbledore himself never even dreamed of?" So I picked that quote because obviously, like, Harry being like, "Yeah, I have magic that you don't and a weapon that's more powerful than yours." Like, yeah, I fucking have it all. So like, that's like confidence, right? Like, I'm not worried that you're going to beat me. Like, I fucking know for a fact that I'm going to beat you. So stop trying to intimidate me. But then also the flip side of it is like Voldemort's overconfidence and cockiness in general is fully showing in this quote. Like, dude, you think you know more like I'm like just the way it's written, just imagine like him saying it in a Valley Girl voice. Like, "You think you know more magic than I do? Than I, Lord Voldemort, who has like performed magic that Dumbledore himself has never even like dreamed of?" Like
Okay, so you view this as a Valley Girl moment. I view this as a boomer millennial moment where it's like the boomer's like, "I have 40 years of experience in this field and I've done this."
You're just a millennial, Harry. You're just a stupid millennial.
This exact same way for the last 40 years, and you're here to tell me that there's a different way. And Harry's like, "You don't even know how to export export a PDF to Word. So calm down."
Like, you don't even know how to fucking check your email, little boomer. So
what is this magic that you know?
What Firefox is? No, I bet you don't.
Sorry, this is just too much. Oh my god, it just gave me flashbacks to like when I was 24 and like all the boomers were like, "What do you know, little girl?" And I was like, "I know more than you." So they're like, "Oh, I can't open this PDF." Oh my god, stop.
How do I attach a file? I don't understand what that means.
Ugh, disgusting. I hate everyone. Anyway.
If you're a boomer and you're listening to this podcast and you were deeply offended, I am sorry. You're probably not the wrong this way.
Like, this is the wrong podcast for you. We are not talking at or to you. I'm so sorry.
I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of boomer Harry Potter fans out there.
Yeah, but not that I don't think a lot listen to this podcast.
I don't know.
If they do, then you're not and enjoy it, then I don't think you are a boomer in the way that, spiritually you're not a boomer. Maybe you're spiritually a millennial.
You're the exception, not the rule. Anyway.
No, they're spiritually millennials, in the same way that I'm spiritually 25 years old still,
Totally.
Or a teen mom, depending on the day.
Anyway, what character did you choose for your politic bravery?
Obviously, I want to say Harry because, like, my man's name is on the title of the fucking book, but I just gotta give it to Neville. He's just such a badass.
I think that's fair.
And it's what's called growth, like when you think about Neville book 1 versus Neville this moment, it's like,
yeah, I feel like
God, the character growth and the character arc on this guy.
Yeah, Neville deserves it more, I think, because like
He's
like
truly the
Harry,
chosen one.
yeah, like bravery is really like overcoming fear. It's not
Mhm.
bravery isn't like being fearless because no one is fearless. Bravery is overcoming fear basically. Is how I see it. And so
Mhm.
like and I think Harry didn't have a ton of fear to overcome in the first place. He had some, and I think at this point like Harry doesn't really fear Voldemort. He hasn't feared Voldemort for a while because I think he understands Voldemort very well.
So, do you think, okay, this is maybe us taking this a different route, but do you think that the reason why
Sorry,
what
there is a fucking I don't know if it's a spider or just a bug. I just killed it. It was on my computer. It's done now. It's gone. It's gone.
sorry. I'm sorry, but the sound you just made, we might have to keep this on the show. Please, Allison,
I
keep
think it
this
was
on
a
the
spider.
show.
I don't know. I killed it so fast. I did not have a chance. Thank God I have a whole fucking box of tissues right next to my computer. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway,
I'm so sorry. Okay. I'm sorry that you went through that, but the sound you made was quite hilarious. And
just like
also I'm glad you were safe.
fucking summer and fucking bugs and bleh. Anyway, go on.
You're moving into a better place soon. I'm rooting for you. Okay. So do you think, going back to the discussion at hand, do you think the reason why Harry did not fear Voldemort at this point was because he had just come back from seeing the shell of basically the wrinkled baby that like shell of a human being that part of his soul is. And so he can have empathy and compassion and pity even
I was
for
gonna
Voldemort
say,
and who he is.
literally gonna say, I think he really took to heart the whole like I think
Pity.
he pities him because I mean my favorite quote that Dumbledore says in the last chapter, don't pity the dead, pity the living. Like and those who live without love. He's talking about Voldemort. Pity
So
Voldemort.
it's really hard to fear, right? Someone
Someone
that
that
you
you
pity
right.
or that you feel sorry for or you that empathize with, which is why obviously I don't fear anyone because I'm always like, oh, you poor thing. No, just kidding. But
Yeah, no, I
um,
feel just as someone who's very empathetic themselves, like empathy I feel like is one of my superpowers, which it's a blessing and a curse. But like it's the fact that it like when it's so easy to understand what someone might be going through, it's harder
mhm,
to like otherize them. And I think that otherizing someone is like a really big factor in fear.
yeah.
But yeah, so basically what I was saying is like because Harry doesn't really have fear for Voldemort anymore to overcome, I think Neville is the one that has true bravery in this
Well,
chapter because he overcame so much fear.
so the thing with Neville though is uh that not only like maybe he was afraid of Voldemort, but he was afraid of literally everything, right?
Everything, yeah.
So this boy who was underestimated and fearful and all these things, and he had like a loss that in some ways was similar and in other ways was more devastating than Harry's because he gets to see his parents like physical form but not their minds or their selves or their
Yeah.
that's devastating to me
Yeah.
that a child can grow up technically with parents who are there in form but not in spirit in a way, like in mind. So of body but not of mind kind of thing. And yeah, he grows up with his grandmother and like his grandmother's a badass, but like he was underestimated by his entire family. He was fearful of everything, probably coddled because of the loss of his parents,
Right.
and that
Yeah.
can be a crutch as well as neglect, right? So being coddled can be not as bad, but being coddled can be stunting to a child.
Yeah.
Um, and so can neglect be that. So the growth that he has exhibited in the last even let's say in the last 3 books, insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And also just speaking of like being coddled as inhibiting that, I mean, Dudley is a great example of that. So yeah, 100%
Oh,
true.
Dudley.
Yeah. I mean, Yeah, I would say if we were giving out superlatives, Neville is most improved.
I mean, Neville's the MVP for me, but yes.
I mean, technically, I think Harry is the MVP because he's the one that killed Voldemort. But yes, not saying that Neville couldn't, but
I mean, whatever. Anyway.
for me, I I was gonna say Harry, but I actually chose Voldemort. So neither of us chose Harry for this one. I chose Voldemort because
It is
his
overconfidence.
yeah, because his confidence like led to his downfall. His confidence was the reason that he lost, because it was overconfidence. And his Harry's confidence allowed, just I don't know if it allowed Voldemort to underestimate him, but it like because Harry was confident, the reason, or because Harry was confident, Voldemort's underestimating him was more fatal and impactful in the end.
There's also different kinds of confidence in this chapter, right? Like Harry's is like a quiet, steadfast confidence.
Yes.
So is Neville's in a way, like these characters. And Voldemort and Bellatrix are great foils to that confidence because they're
Yeah.
so boastful and gleeful and bombastic in the way that they express their quote unquote confidence, that's the downfall for both of them.
Yeah. And we get to see Neville's confidence in this chapter too, which is really great. So
yeah.
Woo.
So yay. Anyway, let's talk about how we see each other's politic in the series. So Helene, your politic is confidence. We talked a lot about Neville's growth, even Harry's growth as like a wizard, of like him finding his way in the wizarding world and finding a place where maybe he didn't feel, accepted by the Muggles.
Yeah.
And I think we see that a lot with like Hermione as well, as like she starts getting more confident in her own knowledge and stops hiding as much behind books to like to feel some confidence. Just a lot of the characters have grown from, obviously we met them at 11 years old.
Right.
And now they're 17. So that's exciting and also terrifying.
Right.
To think about. A lot of them have grown, a lot of them have not. And Ginny's confidence, it makes me think of like one of the better like arcs of the series in terms of like growth. Like we see her from like this shy, quiet, like kind of girl to like giggling, and then like just being kind of
really comes into her own.
And then comes into her own in her confidence and through sports and through like having a social circle at Hogwarts and all of that.
Her confidence is one of the reasons why she's one of my favorite characters. Her confidence.
Okay, so that's great. So anything that I'm missing? I'm just thinking confidence in terms of like characters. A character who doesn't have confidence, Snape, and that's why
I was gonna
say,
I was gonna say, like, in terms of lack of confidence, I feel like Lupin, really insecure, like, always belittling himself.
But also he had a not quote unquote good reason, but like there were factors in society that were adding to that versus someone like Snape. He's like the cis white man of the story, basically, who's like, I'm so oppressed.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Definitely very vastly different reasons for their lack of confidence. 100%. Someone who has way more confidence than he should have is like probably like Vernon.
I mean, yes.
Or Dudley even.
Is it confidence if you're dumb enough to like not realize that,
I mean,
you're dumb?
Maybe. I don't know. Blissful ignorance, really.
Maybe it's just blissful ignorance and not confidence, right?
Yeah. But I think that basically covers it. I mean, like, Dumbledore didn't have a lot of confidence in himself, right? To like handle power.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked about that last episode a lot about how that just broke my heart at least because he handled one situation poorly when he was like fresh out of school, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that he should
Still
punish himself for the
developing.
rest of his life.
His brain was still developing. He was still, his frontal lobe wasn't fully formed yet. Poor guy.
When does it form? 25?
For men, I think it's like 21.
There's something about 25 also, I feel like, but not maybe in the brain. Maybe it's more social. Like
I can look it up real quick.
Yeah, like something about how you kind of cement who you are by the time you're 25.
Frontal lobes, let's see. What age? 20. Oh yeah. So for men, frontal lobes fully develop by 25, although some studies say 30 for men. And I think women's are earlier. Women's, it says about 25 actually. So I guess maybe males are on like the lower, like the later end.
That explains to me why there's such a thing called the quarter life crisis.
Yeah.
I don't know if you went through one, but I definitely went through one. It was painful and emotional, and ended up being good for me. Obviously,
I mean, I think
find a way to make it good, but
I think mine happened during COVID. Unfortunately, mine happened during COVID. But hey, I climbed my way out of it. I clawed my way out of it, and am in a great place now. So that's great.
And guys, she's moving to a way nicer apartment, and I can't be more proud.
Yes. My pre-30 goals are thriving. Anyway,
you are on track on being 30, flirty, and thriving.
So well said. Agreed. So should I talk about bravery in the book? I mean, that's so hard because like, I mean, bravery is like not mentioned at all. No, I'm just kidding.
No, what is courage? What is that word? Courage.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like bravery is like the main trait for one of the most important like plot devices in the entire book, aka houses, Gryffindors. Yeah, I mean, honestly, but it's funny because the first thing that came to mind was someone who actually isn't a Gryffindor. When it comes to bravery, the first person I thought of was Luna, because
she's unapologetically herself.
Yes, she is so brave. Like she's just like not scared to be herself at all. She doesn't care about what other people think. And I don't know. I mean, like maybe that's not bravery, but I think in a way it's bravery.
I think that's confidence.
Yeah, that's true. That's confidence. There we go.
Both. There you
go. But yeah, I mean, so many of our characters struggle with bravery throughout the series. Obviously, like Harry, he kind of is like the baseline for bravery as like the series goes on. He is just unafraid of so much. He doesn't really have like things holding him back, but like Hermione and at the end of Sorcerer's Stone, that quote that she says, like, there are things that are more important than like books and cleverness. And she's like finding her bravery. She's realizing that she values bravery. And as the books go on, we see her growing into like this very brave woman who.
Well, and the aspect of houses, right, is not necessarily that one trait means that you don't have the others, right? Like with Hermione, we see that being brave does not preclude her from being studious.
Right.
It just means that maybe at the end of the day, she will value that part of herself more than the intellectual
and
herself.
She's brave enough to stand up for people who don't have the means or voice to stand up for themselves.
I'm sorry. One act of bravery we need to talk about: the house elves.
Yeah, in this chapter, creature.
Oh my God.
I was writing down, like, I was typing up what my chocolate and Dementors were while I was reading the chapter, and I like wrote out full quotes and deleted and wrote again like 6 different times for chocolate, because as I'm sure you're also aware, there are too many fucking good parts of this chapter.
Yeah, no, this was like a very chocolatey chapter.
Yes. And one
Yes.
of the ones that I wrote down and then ended up not going with was the part where Creature is like leading the charge and saying like, for my master, for Master Regulus,
The bravest or
like
whatever.
defeat the Dark Lord. It's like everything that's against what Mrs. Black, his like original master that he had all this loyalty to at the beginning, like against everything she would have believed in, because the 2 people in this world that showed him kindness, like, believed something else. And so he was brave enough to like kind of like punch back. So yeah, that was definitely Creature in this chapter was definitely brave.
Yeah, I mean, made me tear up. I teared up like 7 times this chapter in
Yep.
a good way.
Yep, me too. Me too.
Which I was like, God damn it, it still gets me every time. Like,
yeah.
you want to hate the author, and then like you read this and you're like, God damn it. You know, there's redeemable qualities in everyone, I guess. But also,
I mean, we love this. We love this series for a reason. Like, there's a reason that, like, this many years later, we're still talking about it.
Speaking of boomers, I think she just got boomer brain, and her brain got rotten by the internet. To be honest with you, but yeah, that's
yeah. She reached a certain age and lost
she
all
went no she reached a certain
empathy.
age, and she went down a YouTube rabbit hole, which can radicalize you if you're not careful, to be honest. Yes.
Yeah, I know people who that has happened to with QAnon. So yeah,
I mean, like, is she QAnon? Maybe she is.
I mean, she still, I think, says that she's radically anti-Trump, but I don't know.
But I don't believe anything anywhere.
I mean, I have no idea. We don't know her other than what she says online.
Oh, I try to like avoid her at all costs, to be honest with you. But yeah.
So yeah, I think I covered bravery pretty well throughout the series. I mean, there's so many. We could talk about it for literally like ages. Like, there's just so much. So
Well, no, there's a lot in this book. I think one of the things the book does the series does very well is not just portraying acts of bravery, but also portraying sometimes the cost of acts of bravery, that acts of bravery could isolate you from society, right? Like Harry speaking out against the ministry and saying Voldemort is back had a real effect on his life, because he was persecuted by the ministry and the media, and people were talking about him behind his back. So it's not like there's certain series or certain things where bravery is one of because it's a hero's journey, right? And bravery is touted as this like great quality, which it is, but often what is not shown is sometimes the social consequences of speaking truth to power, which can get you fired. Yeah, but it can get you fired. It can isolate you from people. It can ruin friendships. It can ruin other people's lives. Like, it can have even unintended consequences that you have to handle later on and maybe atone for, even if you didn't mean to, affect someone else's life. So I feel like the series does a really good job of also showcasing that bravery comes with a cost.
Yeah. I couldn't say it better myself. Also, one thing that I thought of was bravery in terms of Peter Pettigrew too, because like he's like a weird case of like a Gryffindor with like no bravery at all, and just what like he's a case study of like what lack of bravery can do to a person.
So I think Peter Pettigrew, because my whole theory on the Sorting Hat is that it measures potential and values, right? But it doesn't tell you the future, right? It doesn't predict who you will become. And Neville had no bravery at the beginning of the series,
Right.
but the Sorting Hat saw a potential for him, right? And that's why that, and maybe that he chose Gryffindor as his house because for reasons, right? But Peter Pettigrew could have been a similar case study of there was potential there that went unexplored because he did not want to explore it because he was so afraid that he'd rather depend on other people to
Yeah.
shield him and to choose powerful people to cozy up to rather than stand on his own.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe like not just someone with no bravery, but someone who let fear overcome their potential for bravery.
Yeah. Damn.
I mean, he is a disgrace to us all. Is
Yep.
what I will say about that.
Yup.
All right. So speaking of disgraces, let's talk about Dementors in this chapter in our section we like to call Dementors and Chocolate, where we talk about what we didn't like, our Ted Cruz / Dementors, and then what we liked, our chocolates / Mrs. Weasley's.
Yes. Love it.
Talk to me about your Dementor.
Yeah, so this is something that it was one of those things where I like forgot that this happened.
Yes.
Because it's not in the book in the movie, and I don't know, I guess I just haven't read the book enough times.
I love how this movie is so iconic in our brains that every time I'm reading this book in particular, it happens with the other books, but even more so with this one, that I'm just picturing the movie the entire time.
Yeah, to be honest, I think I can't remember how many times I've reread this book, but I honestly think I might have seen those two movies, part 1 and part 2, more times than I'd read the books.
For sure.
And that's not true. Yeah, it's not true for any of the other books, honestly. But yeah, I these movies are honestly like some of the best Harry Potter movies, and this is like 7 part 1 is my favorite Harry Potter movie for reasons. And so yeah, I can see that. But anyway, this part I didn't remember happening, and it just infuriated me when I watched it for good reason. And it's the part where Voldemort is disrespecting what he thinks is Harry's dead body, but is actually Harry's alive body because Harry isn't dead, by casting Crucio on it multiple times and flinging it into the air just all willy-nilly. Which for some magical reason, Harry doesn't actually feel the effects of the Crucio curse, which I mean, yay, for many reasons. 1, yay, because he's not in pain, and 2, yay, because it didn't blow his cover. But yeah, just the fact that he's like freaking, disrespecting what he thinks is a dead body is just despicable. And then also, as an honorable mention, I said setting the Sorting Hat on fire after putting it on Neville's head, because Voldemort's a little prick this chapter. Thankfully, he dies in this chapter as well.
I mean, Voldemort is a little bitch.
Yeah.
In every chapter he's in,
Yeah, but I mean, some of the things he did in this chapter where I was like, "Ooh, you bastard! Fuck you! You're really making me happy that you die at the end of this chapter."
Well, I think that's pretty sure that's by design.
Yeah.
My Dementor is like a very small moment that just still infuriated me more than anything in this world. And it's when Voldemort calls Neville a brave boy. Listen, you little bitch.
Hey, it works with their politics too.
You leave my son alone. You leave my son alone. Is all I have to say. Not my son, you bitch.
Not my son, you bitch. Yes. Love it.
What a fucker. Let's move over to our chocolates. What's bringing you light and positivity in this chapter?
Yeah, so like I said, there were like so many. There was the house elf one. There was the one that I think that you're gonna mention in your chapter in your chocolate. Okay. So I won't like get into it. There was lots, but the one I ended on, like I was reading through the chapter, and like I said, I was writing them down as I was reading, and then I would come across another one and be like, no, I like this one more, and I would like delete the old one and write it down. And then I get to this one that's near the end, And I start just like almost full on crying. And I'm like, nope, this one takes it. This one takes it. I have to do this one. And so it's this part in the book at the end. It says, but Harry had eyes only for the man who stood in the largest portrait directly behind the headmaster's chair. Goodness. Tears were sliding down from behind the half-moon spectacles into the long silver beard, and the pride and gratitude emanating from him filled Harry with the same balm as the Phoenix song. Ugh. Just as someone who is a deep someone who has a deep appreciation for Dumbledore, just loves, like, Dumbledore and Harry are, like, many a time tied as favorite character along with Ginny up there. Like, I know that, like, we get this, like, scene in Cursed Child where they do finally have, like, this beautiful, this is like one redeeming scene for me in Cursed Child, where they have this beautiful conversation where Dumbledore does finally tell Harry that he loves him, and all of that. Like, we don't get that here, but I feel like we get like a little nugget of it here. Like, we get to see Dumbledore have so much pride and love for Harry in this moment. Yes, Adriana, I'm calling on you with your hand up over there. Oh no. Okay, so where do I need to start?
Go ahead,
again?
Helen.
Okay, where do I need to start?
From the top of the chocolate.
Oh, okay. Sorry, give me a second. Okay, so as we discussed, like, I went through a lot of different ones, and I was reading through the chapter and, like, writing them down and then deleting them, and, like, you know, oh, this one's better, I gotta go with this one. And then I got to this one at the end of the chapter that just had me almost full on crying. And I was like, okay, this is it. I have to do it. This is the one I have to do. This one takes it. So it's this at the end here. It says, but Harry had eyes only for the man who stood in the largest portrait directly behind the headmaster's chair. Tears were sliding down from behind the half-moon spectacles onto the long silver beard, and the pride and gratitude emanating from him filled Harry with the same balm as a Phoenix song. And it just, I mean, you guys know me by now. I mean, we're knee deep in this whole thing, and you know how much I love Dumbledore, and especially Dumbledore and Harry's relationship. And, you know, I know we've talked about this before, but there's, like, that scene, the one redeemable scene in Cursed Child where, you know, Harry's talking to Dumbledore's portrait and Dumbledore tells him he loves him, and it's just, like, very heartfelt and touching, and I love that scene. The only thing I like about Cursed Child. And I feel like we get, like, a...
Still have not watched it. Still have not read it or watched it.
Yeah, that was, like, the one redeeming quality for me, honestly. But I feel like we just get, like, a little glimpse of that in this scene. Like, Dumbledore doesn't outright say, I love you, Harry, or, like, you know, say the things that, like, he eventually will say, or, like, we want him to say in this chapter. But I feel like that quote that I just read, like, really just shows that, like, he has all this pride and love for Harry that's just, like, bursting out of him after him being able to, like, achieve this goal that they've been working towards for so many years. And it's just so beautiful, and I just love them, and I love Dumbledore, and I just want to give him a big old hug. That was my chocolate.
Yeah, got it. Love this for you. Love this for us.
Right.
Love it for us all. So I have too many chocolates to choose from, so I am choosing two. And one of them will not be a surprise to anyone. It is Molly Weasley's iconic line, "Not my daughter, you bitch." Yes.
Yep. That was definitely one that I had written down, and then
10,000 points for Gryffindor. I don't care if she graduated, like, forever ago. Yep. 10,000 points for Gryffindor. We win the cup. Like, that's it.
Yeah, great moment.
You know, a big runner-up for this moment. It is, once again, my boy, Neville, severing Nagini's head. Another 5,000 points to Gryffindor, you know?
Yeah. Gryffindor definitely wins the House Cup this year. That's for sure.
For reals. Like, I don't care. Like, Gryffindor is probably negative house points at this point because of the Caros. Still winning. Still
Right.
winning.
Exactly. Yeah. Amazing.
That's it.
Agreed on all fronts. So
Speaking of winning, tell me what you've been consuming lately, because we need some media to talk about.
yeah, so well, I'm gonna get this first one out of the way because I literally and please stop me because if I cannot remember if I've already talked about the show Shrinking on Apple TV. Have I brought that up?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I'm like, I don't remember, but anyway, it's a show on Apple TV Plus, with Jason Segel, Harrison Ford, and Jessica Williams, and like they're all therapists, they're all coworkers. It's a comedy, sitcom type thing. Jason Segel's character's like wife has just died. It happens like before the show starts. He has a daughter named Annie who's like 17, 18 years old. And they're dealing with the death of his wife, and he like decides to like, I don't know, make life interesting after dealing with the death of his wife for a year. Like he like employs some really questionable methods in therapy, like telling one of his clients who has an emotionally abusive husband that she has to leave her husband or else he's gonna not be her therapist anymore. Like things like that, like forcing his clients to do things that they don't want to do in
My
like
goodness.
immoral ways. Not letting them get to it on their own, basically. And like, it is a funny show. It's like enjoyable. I was actually talking about it with my therapist at therapy last week. And she like, because like the whole thing with like my mom, like context with like my mom and stuff. But she was saying like, yeah, I love it. I think it's hilarious. And I was like, I also love it. Like, I also enjoy it. But like, I think that there should be some sort of rule that only people who are currently in therapy should be allowed to watch it, because it makes therapy look super fucking bad. And so I feel like only people who are currently in therapy like can acknowledge that like that is not true. Like it's funny because it's not accurate. You know what I mean? Whereas
as long as you have a good therapist.
yes. Like an ethical therapist, a moral therapist, yeah. But like people who aren't in therapy or refuse to go to therapy, cough, people in my life, they should not be allowed to watch it, even though they do, and I'm not happy about it, because I feel like it just gives like a bad name to therapy, even though like you should know, like I just don't feel like it's going to encourage people who won't go to therapy to like go to therapy, if you get
like it reinforces all the preconceived notions that they have about how therapy is terrible, and it gives them more excuses to not go. Okay.
Yes,
gotcha.
exactly. So yeah, that's why I was talking about it with her, because I was like, there's someone in my life who I'm not going to out on the podcast, but like there's someone in my life who like doesn't, like who refuses to go to therapy but watches the show, and I really feel like she's not getting what is needed from this show. It's probably harmful.
Oh God, thank God it's not me. Could you imagine if that was me? Like if you were talking about me on the podcast?
Oh my God, no, of course not. You know who I'm talking about.
No, but you know, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, right. Thank God I can safely say that is not because one, I'm in therapy, and two, I don't watch this show, so neither of those conditions fit.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, if you, I'm only recommending this show to people who are currently in therapy. Okay, do not watch the show if you are not in therapy, please. I do not need anybody getting more excuses for not going to therapy. So that's the first one. And then the second one is I started the show The Flight Attendant on HBO Max. It's now just Max now. I always forget. On Max. This weekend with Kaylee Cuoco. And it's like, have you seen it? I don't know if have you seen it?
I've watched season 1.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like a couple episodes into season 2 at this point. But yeah, it's like this like thriller murder mystery like type thing, but with like a really interesting comedic edge. Like it's not a comedy, but like it's a dark comedy. Yeah, it's a dark comedy. Like they're able to incorporate like lightness and fun and like humor in where you just like wouldn't expect it to be. So it's like it's totally like serious content, but like still an enjoyable watch because they're able to like make that comedy. And Kaylee Cuoco is just like, I mean, I did not doubt this for 1 second, but she's fucking phenomenal. She's so fucking good at her job. I cannot, like, amazing. No notes. Thoroughly enjoy it. Also, Michelle Gomez's character is delightful.
Yes.
She plays Miranda, delightful character. And yeah, it's a great cast. The first season is so good. The second season, like, I also see it being just as good. I'm just not like far enough into it to like make that decision yet. But I highly recommend it. It's very very enjoyable. So those are the two for me.
It's highly watchable. I will say that.
Yeah, and like the murder mystery part of it is like very compelling.
Oh, have you seen her new show? Yeah, it's called Based on a True Story or whatever.
Oh no, I haven't. But I've seen like about it, but I have not.
I've seen the previews, but I'm highly like interested in watching it.
There's also a movie that she came out with Pete Davidson earlier this year that I also need to see on Peacock. I can't remember what the name is. I'm gonna look it up. Kaylee Cuoco, Pete Davidson.
She just had a baby too.
Yes, she did. So the movie on Peacock that I was thinking of with Pete Davidson is called Meet Cute. So that I haven't seen it yet, but that looked good. I would check that out probably, and I probably will. But I love her because she voices Harley Quinn in the Harley Quinn the animated series, the show that I worked on for 2 years, but also love so fucking much. She's the best Harley Quinn. It's hilarious. I also highly recommend that. So Kaylee Cuoco, you're amazing. I'm like, if you're listening to the podcast, I love you. Good job.
I mean, of course she is.
Right.
Speaking of people we love, the media I've been consuming is a repeat media of someone you and I love very deeply, which is one Emily Henry. I have been rereading icon, legend, superstar Emily Henry. Rereading Beach Read, and my God, what a fucking perfect book.
Why have you been rereading it? May I ask? Just for fun?
Actually, just for fun. It's Beach Read is like a comfort read for me. I think all of her books are, to be honest.
Okay.
But Beach Read was the first like.
That was your favorite?
At least, no, that's not my favorite.
No, book lovers. Sorry, right.
Yeah. So Beach Read was my first Emily Henry book for her like adult like rom-com career.
Yeah.
My first Emily Henry book of all time is a YA novel that she wrote, The Love That Split the World.
I've seen that come up on my searches for her. Yeah.
So it's very different from her contemporary romance stuff. So I'm so glad that, I mean, The Love That Split the World is very, very good. I'm not saying it's not. It's just not where I am in life.
Yeah, that's fair.
So Emily Henry's Beach Read was the first book that she published for like her like rom-com type career, or like chick lit, however you want to call it. Just literature, honestly, with capital L. Actually, literature in all caps. That's how I'm going to describe all these books. Such a great, like, fantastic book in many ways, but the way it is written, the way it is plotted, dialogue, everything is just perfection. And I was listening to it back to back, kind of like I finished it and then started it again, because why not? And there is, Helene, so much in chapter 1 that ends up being mentioned in some way, shape, or form in the last chapter in such a beautiful way that I was like, this bitch, like.
Well, I must reread it then. I guess I have to reread it at some point.
This is what I would recommend. If you would read, just for funsies, right? Read the last chapter of the book and then read the first chapter of the book, and then you're like, holy fucking shit, how did she do this?
Okay, yeah, because I mean, Beach Read is the one I read most recently by her, and And it is a close second
and
behind.
it's like just the way it is done is very subtle, but
Yeah.
still it's such an artful way. I don't know how to explain it. It's just fantastic. I'm like, bitch, like I want to be you when I grow up, and you're
Yeah.
younger than I am.
Yeah. Well, Beach Read was definitely a close second behind People We Meet on Vacation. For me, because like I feel like I just related a lot more to January as a protagonist.
I mean,
And
Gus is everything to me, but yes.
wait, what is?
Gus.
Oh yeah, I love Gus, and I maintain that
Augustus.
Augustus. Yes, I maintain that Gus is a very hot Latino man, and not a basic white boy. I don't care what the book says.
There's a
That is
line. This is not going to probably be like. It's not a spoiler. I don't think. But there's a line where she's like, "Yeah, you're writing your like, is it Kerouac circle jerk or something like that?"
yes,
I was
yeah, that's
like,
it. Yeah, that's it.
"Oh, beautiful!" Like,
Yep.
yes,
That
and like,
line is like very akin to her Bigfoot erotica line in Book Lovers. So
which is, by the way, my favorite line in Book Lovers.
yeah, it's a great line. Great line. If Kerouac circle jerk and Bigfoot erotica are making your ears perk up, just pick up an Emily Henry book.
There's another line in the book that also makes me laugh. It's the it's all the inappropriate jokes obviously make me laugh, but it's like the foot job on chapter 1.
Very bad first impression with him. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, foot
Very
jobs.
funny.
My God.
That was very funny. She's hilarious.
The haunted hat. Just everything. Just everything.
The purse wine.
The purse wine. I was like, you will see. There's a purse wine situation you will like.
Yep. That was great. She also loves Veronica Mars, so I mean,
no. Her favorite father figure was your
Mars.
Favorite father figure, Keith Mars.
Yes, Keith Mars. Yeah, I love the Keith Mars love. That is probably one big reason why Beach Read is up there for me, because I felt seen.
I mean, I feel like all her books are fantastic, to be fair.
Yes.
You know? So it's hard to pick a favorite.
It's like picking a favorite child. Yeah. It's like,
I mean, I only have one child, but I guess I have 3 dogs, so
yeah, it's like picking a favorite child.
Have you seen? Did I put this on my Insta bio or something? Somewhere I put like mother of 4, 3 chihuahuas and 1 human or something like that.
Yeah, that's accurate.
I mean, it is. So also I've been listening to another podcast called Insight, as 2 words instead of insight, Insight. And it's a podcast hosted by 2 mental health professionals. One is Irish. At least I know that for a fact. I don't know if the other one's British.
Okay.
I might be like, I was like, all the accents sound like almost the same to me because I'm a heathen. And they talk about narcissistic abuse specifically sometimes, or most of the time, narcissistic parents, and they have like people write to them and they like dissect and they talk through a lot of the things. And I found it like very healing as someone who grew up with around people with narcissistic tendencies, if not outright, full blown narcissism. So in one way, it is a helpful podcast for validating experiences, but also for healing. And there's something that the episode I was listening to today, where they were talking about, this is why we say you can't heal in the environment that you can't heal in the environment that hurt you. And at first I was like, well, that's a cliche kind of thing, but then I like truly felt it in my soul and I got chills because
I can see that. Yeah.
Because at first you're like, well, that's like it sounds like a platitude, but when you think about it a little bit deeper, and then you're like, oh yeah, because like your environment can give you options, right, of healing or moving on. that maybe if you stay stuck in the same cycle or environment, you could not.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I know that I began to grow much more as a person and began to heal even without therapy, right? Even before therapy,
Yeah.
when I moved away from Puerto Rico, right? Which
Same.
was a site of like a lot of pain and like,
Not Puerto Rico for me, but
well, yeah, no, I
yeah.
understand what you meant, but not necessarily pain, but also like this was the environment that had shaped me or like in ways that were great, but also in ways that were not great, you know? So I learned to heal and become more of myself and like Neville kind of find the potential within me and become who I was always, I feel, meant to be, where I couldn't in that environment or didn't
Yeah.
feel safe enough in that environment to be. So yeah, that was one of those little like gems that someone says and it really like hits you in a way where you're like, oh, I didn't expect that to hit me that hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've listened to a couple of like psychology type podcasts like that at the recommendation of my therapist, specifically about like attachment styles because I have like the rarest attachment style. So she's like, find some literature to like learn more about it. But yeah, I feel like that kind of stuff is less like pleasure listening and more like I'm taking time to like
Homework.
yeah,
Homework.
I'm putting effort into working on like myself and breaking down these cycles and like becoming better. And like it's not something you can just like, oh, I'm gonna listen to this podcast while I like clean my bathroom. You know, it's like, oh, I have to fucking be present, you know?
Yeah.
And
Could you
think.
imagine, like, you know, it's just like, well, listen to this podcast while I clean this bathroom, and like you're like
And then you're like
sobbing in the middle of the
sobbing.
tub.
Yeah, you're lying on the cold hard tile floor, just like
You're just
bawling your
like
eyes out.
sobbing in the like the on the tub, like in the middle of the tub with like your
Right.
brush in your hand, like oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Yep.
That sounds about right. Like just sobbing
Mm-hmm.
in your bathroom floor. I mean, who amongst us, am I right, has not sobbed on the bathroom floor?
Whomst.
Whomst amongst us?
Yes, I can remember the last, not the last time I did it, but a very like distinct time that I
Specific
did.
time.
Yes. Yep.
Me too. And it's way more recent than anyone would probably believe.
Mine is not so recent, actually, surprisingly. But yes.
But you know what? Life has ups and downs, and it ebbs and flows. And
Right.
some days you just gotta let it out,
Yeah.
even if it's just out of anger. So yeah, highly recommend anyone reads Beach Read, even if it's for like the 50th time. There's always something new to discover about how gorgeous of a book that is.
Yeah, and I mean, if
so
at this point, if you haven't like read any Emily Henry book at this point, like we talked about her so much, I'm surprised that you've held out this long. But
I mean, even our editor Allison got into it, you know?
Yeah, I was so here for Allison's Emily Henry journey. And honestly, if like I don't care who you are, if we've never spoken before, if you listen to this podcast, if you want to reach out to me and just tell me, hey, I'm starting Emily Henry, I will be there. I want to hear about it. Tell me what. Tell me what
also
book you're
add me to
starting with.
that chat.
Yes. Tell us what book you're starting with, what your thoughts are. Like, I need to know everything. So do it.
Yeah, we are Emily Henry Stan podcast now and forever.
Yes.
And I hope she never does anything that makes me regret reading her books, please.
Oh my
please,
God.
Emily.
Don't even like put that energy in the world right now. Like I can't handle that.
In this economy, Adriana, really?
Exactly.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Please join us next week to talk about chapter 37 and the final final pages of this book.
Oh my God.
Which is the epilogue of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, titled 19 Years Later.
Jesus Christ. It's the last chapter. Holy shit.
But not our last episode, but next to last episode, yes.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, anyway, if you've enjoyed this conversation, please take a second to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you happen to be listening to us right now. It helps new listeners find the podcast, and it makes us happy, which we don't have a lot of time left to make us happy. So time is running out.
Yeah, just cast your Patronus in the form of a 5-star review.
Exactly.
Okay, until then, politics managed.
Amazing.
Support this show by going to patreon.com/Occhiopolitics. Our patrons keep this show going. You can find us online at Occhiopolitics.com, and we are at Occhiopolitics on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can email us your thoughts at info@Occhiopolitics.com. Leave us a voicemail at 915-996-1699, and you might just hear yourself on the podcast. Adriana Wilson is the founder and creative director of the podcast. Helene Karp is the producer and social media manager. Allison Pullman is the audio wizard and editor who makes us sound so good. Cover art and physical rewards are designed by Adriana Wilson. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are expressly their own and not representative of their employers or associates. Occhiopolitics is part of the MuggleNet family of podcasts.